Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. So today we're going to be talking about...
You said our again.
So today we're going to be talking about how we knew each other were the one. In the last video, we kind of dabbled in it. We talked a little bit about it. I mentioned my list, he mentioned his standards. So we're definitely going to go more in depth and also talk a little bit more what it was like in our actual dating experience. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So, how did you know I was the one?
I really just asked God. You know, there's more than that, but that was one thing. And that was definitely the deal breaker because, you know, I had been growing in my relationship with the Lord, especially after meeting her. And I just flat out asked him, I was like, Lord, if this is the girl, show me, tell me. And over the course of our dating time, you know, he gave me an answer. He spoke to me, I know he did. But he also gave me a lot of confirmation throughout our dating time. There were specific things, like, she talked about in the last video that she had 3 really specific,
like very specific things, yeah.
confirmations, and it was the same for me over the course of our dating time, where I would just be like, Lord, I need a confirmation. Just again, like maybe we had a little argument or a little tiff or something, and I would be like, Lord, I need a confirmation that we're okay. I guess that was more what it was.
I think for him, he needed more confirmation than I did because, like I said, when I got my yes from God, I asked God if he was the one for me. And if not, if he could be. I don't know if I told you that, but I literally, told God, okay, is he the one? And if not, can you make him the one? And honestly, I remember I did this in my room. It was honestly one of the first times. It was like I almost heard God audibly. Like, the yes was so powerful. I've never heard God talk to me like that before. So I always got really excited. I blushed, whatever. But once I got my 3 confirmations, I got them on the mission trip. All of them were within a 10-week span that God said yes, yes, and yes. But there was this one defining moment for me that happened also on the mission trip that was like, wow, like God is really on board with this. At the time, on the mission trip, so actually we had signed a contract before going on the mission trip saying that we would not date anyone on the mission trip. We honestly accidentally broke it because, obviously we didn't go into the mission trip expecting we were gonna date each other. It literally just happened. We were just hanging out because among the 6 people, we all decided that we were going to date each other in the way that, okay, we're all complete strangers. We have to get to know each other. Let's go out on a friendship date. So that's what all of us did. We just ended up liking each other a little bit extra. So when we continued hanging out and getting to know each other, I don't really know how, but I guess it was brought to the attention of the leaders, and they were like, this can't happen. You guys can be friends, but nothing more. So we would recommend you guys not seeing each other anymore. And one, that was virtually impossible because we lived together. His room was a good 7 feet away from mine. We did all the missions work together. The only time we weren't together is when we were working because we had our respective jobs on the same mission trip. So it was difficult because obviously when you like someone this much, it's hard to let them go, but also see them every day. So we definitely did try. There was a few weeks where we didn't really go out together, but we would just, hang out at the house and talk, watch movies. But that first day when we had that one-on-one together with the leaders, I was reading Jeremiah because I was like, he was upset, I was upset. I was like, you know what? I just need to go to the Bible. I need to just, unwind, whatever. So I was reading Jeremiah. And I literally heard the Lord tell me, go to Mark 10:9. And I was like, okay. I went to Mark 10:9 and it literally said, guys, I can't make this up. When you're reading Jeremiah, you're not thinking about Mark, let alone that one verse. It literally said, what God has placed together, let no man separate. And the context of that was marriage. I didn't even know that until a week or a month after I went back to that verse because we were talking about it. I just read that verse and I was like, I know God put us together. Because God doesn't just send 2 people together on a mission trip and then date on accident. Nothing God does is a coincidence. So I literally ran to his room and I told him, I was like, God gave me a word for us. And I told him, and that was kind of the moment where we knew nothing could separate us ever. That was a mini story within itself. But that being said, that was my major confirmation. So that every time, he said, we had a mini argument, a mini tiff, it wouldn't phase me the way that it would him because I am your first relationship. And I had previous relationships before. Obviously none of them as amazing as him and I, but I was just never worried about our tiffs, our arguments, our disagreements because God had confirmed it. He confirmed it multiple times, more than 3 times. The way that he did it also just made me be like, yeah, whatever. We're gonna go through stuff, but that's not gonna change anything. And also, I made the choice. When you're in a relationship, and you love somebody, it's not supposed to be a feeling. You have to choose them. You have to choose to love them. The reason why people cheat all the time is because they never chose you. They just feel like they love you. If you feel like you love someone, it can't go anywhere. It won't go anywhere because it's gonna run out at some point.
Preach.
I chose him, and when God gave me the confirmation, I knew he's the one. I'm never gonna find anyone better because God made him for me. So at that moment, I was just like, you know what? Yeah, like nothing else matters. He's the one, and that's just how it's gonna be.
Yeah, no, I was learning that over the course of time. She was my first relationship. And so there was a lot of learning that I had to do in a lot of different areas. One of them being when we have disagreements, which is going to happen during a relationship, you know.
Yeah, you're not always gonna agree with each other.
I think, you know, we prayed and we're continuing to pray that we wouldn't get into the fights, but you're going to have disagreements and you have to learn how to work with each other and to compromise, you know, and
to communicate.
And to communicate. That's a really big thing that we've been learning. Being able to say what you feel in a very clear manner.
Understanding and clear way.
Yes.
Like you can be firm. Something that I had to learn from him in like the time period of us dating is that he would straight up tell me, no, like you're wrong. And like I needed that because honestly, in a way, I was just so used to people just letting me have my way that for him to tell me like, no, you have no reason to be mad right now and this is why, it took me aback. I was like, what are you talking about? But it's growing. Iron sharpening iron. Like, he was right. There were some moments I had no business being as upset as I was or upset at all. And it takes a lot of maturity to swallow your pride and also tell yourself, you know what? My feelings are wrong. Because your feelings are not concrete. Your feelings are not even the truth. So I was also so grateful for a man that's like as healthy mentally and emotionally and spiritually as him to tell me like, no, you're wrong and this is why, but also do it in a gentle and caring way. Because that is literally so rare. I've never met anyone who's good at conflict resolution. Honestly, the way that we have become now. Because like,
and we're still growing. There's always growth.
Of course, yeah, but like it really is a miracle how we're able to just diffuse an argument by one either just getting over it or just realizing like this is stupid. So yeah.
I think something else that I learned over the course of our dating time is not always having to prove that you're right. I mean, that's a really big thing that causes a lot of arguments that we've found and we've seen is I think that I'm right, she thinks that she's right, and we're trying to get each other to think the same way about it, and it's never going to happen. Most times, it doesn't happen. Yeah. But it's okay is the thing that I'm trying to say. We learn that we don't have to always, and we still, you know, need to grow in this. Obviously, we've got a lot of growing to do, but it's okay to not always see eye to eye, to not always agree, to not always think that the other person is right, but to be at peace with that together.
And also have the humility to say I'm sorry, even when you feel like you should.
That's a big thing. That's a big thing.
Because, like, if you have the humility to admit when you're wrong, even if you don't think that you're wrong, just to appease somebody else, that is being the bigger person. Like, that is showing you're truly humble and you're choosing to love that person. And also, like, when he said, we're not always going to see eye to eye, there's, like, two sides to that I want to talk about. The first is, like, you're totally right. Like, yes, there are big things, like, for example, believing in God. You have to agree on that. We, obviously, from the jump, we would not have liked each other if either of us were not a believer. We wouldn't even have met if either of us were not a believer. So that's a huge thing. So there are obviously major things you have to agree on, but minor discrepancies, like, for example, what to put where in the fridge. Or like, like leaving food out a little too long. Not necessary for an argument. Absolutely not. That is childish behavior. So it's just like, when you don't agree on something as small as that, you can just be like, okay, he does things differently than I do. He was raised differently than I was. I don't need to get mad at him because of what he's used to. I could just be like, hey, next time, could you do this? Or hey, next time, you know, I don't really like that. Could we change it? Or I could just let it go. Because not everything has to be done my way in order for it to be appropriate.
And this is where the Lord comes in, because there's going to be days, there has been many days where I'm not feeling so good about whatever. Something caused me to not feel so good. For her, some days she's not feeling so good. And those little things, like she was describing, bother you. And you pick up on them. And you want to take it out on the other person. But the Lord comes in because we have, in the past, tried to take it to God first. Take it to Jesus first. To work out the time with Him. And in those moments, it kind of diffuses. And you're able to communicate with the other person. Or sometimes not even say anything. Like, just like you said, just You don't have to say anything to this. It's not a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also want to speak to like not having to be right all the time. You don't need to prove your point all the time, especially when that's just going to instigate the argument even further. No reason for that. So something about us is that we think differently. And that, honestly, in the beginning of our relationship was something like really hard to get over because I couldn't understand the way his brain worked when he would explain things to me or answer my questions, or when I would be explaining something to him, he would kind of rerun through it in a way that made sense to him, and I would be like, what? That was a lapse in our communication. But when you like, you know, spend more time with people and have conversations that aren't the easiest, for example, like we'd have a lot of biblical centered conversations. When you have to learn how to understand them, not only understand them in generality of conversing, but also in how they handle frustration and things like that. Because there were times where I would be flight and there were times where I would be fight. And there was also times where he would be flight or the opposite. Like we would pick and choose when we were each. So something I had to realize is that if like I was ever upset for whatever reason, he would just be like, all right, let's just end the phone call. We don't have to talk right now. And that would piss me off because I would be like, no, we have to fight for this. Like, what are you doing? We had to come to a compromise that like certain things didn't need to be talked out because they were so small and so insignificant that there was the frustration would just pass, or there would be things that we needed to face head on so we could talk it out and not make it be an obstacle in the future.
And I said it a few times, we both have in this little talk, is we're still growing. We have a lot of growing to do.
Yeah, like we're not weathered married people. We're not even married yet.
Yeah.
But this is just our wisdom of how we knew we were the one because we grew so close together. We were willing to compromise. And also we made it clear that we were choosing each other from the start.
Yes. There was definitely a decision made. Even through all of the confirmations that I mentioned earlier, I constantly made a decision that this is the right person. You know, I chose this person. And the Lord, like I said, confirmed it early on in the relationship. This is the right person. And so whenever I asked for confirmation, I always asked for it from a foundation of choosing this person, which is different. I wasn't asking for another sign. I was solid on what I knew, but I needed that little extra, if that makes sense. Yeah. Again, because her being my first real relationship, and we had big dreams. We wanted to get married earlier. You know, even early in the relationship, we realized that we were going to get married. Just to have that extra encouragement, and also when we had little arguments or tiffs, like we mentioned earlier, just to have that pat on the back, like, it's okay. These things happen. You're going to get through them together. And we did.
Yeah, we always came out stronger. Always.
And I'd love to talk about some of the things that we went through over our dating time. Good things and not so good things. Challenges for sure. One of them was definitely that mission trip. Liking one another, dating, but yet trying to
respect the guidelines.
Yeah. And that was a little difficult because we learned a lot from each other. We grew together during that time. And we wanted to be open with how we felt about one another. I think that having to push it back really affected us in a not so good way during that time, but we don't have to get into that. Once we were done with that mission trip,
like, just to be clear, we went into the mission trip being barely friends, like barely grazing the definition of friendship.
Right.
So the first 2 months of our relationship, we lived together. Like that's unconventional. Right.
Yeah, and obviously respecting one another's boundaries, learning a lot about each other. And we were in a place that we were very uncomfortable. We weren't in
This was not a 5-star hotel.
Yeah, it was someplace that we had to get used to, and we grew a lot in those first 2 months of us dating.
And that's why we know that it was God-driven. Because the whole entire time it was like quickened and escalated. What some people would experience in a relationship in a year, we experienced in 2 months.
Yeah, it was really brought to us quickly. The transitions, there were so many transitions in our dating time, that being one of them. Coming out of the summer mission 2 months into our relationship, she lives in Connecticut, I live in New York. Having that distance between us was strange at first.
It was a shock.
Yeah.
Seeing someone every day for 2 months and 2 weeks to not knowing when you're going to see them again, that's rough.
Yeah. Past that, we both went back to college. That was our senior year. The transition of going back to college, that was another big transition. We have a lot of responsibility at our colleges, between the classes, obviously, our respective crew groups, figuring out how we were going to see each other on the weekends. Throughout the college time, that 1 year, we made the best out of it. We had some really really great times. We learned a lot, but it was tough at times.
It was, because mind you, like, neither of us own a car.
Right.
So it was like, how are we supposed to see each other? Like, obviously, yeah, we have weekends, but like, how are we supposed to see each other
Right,
on a
right,
regular basis?
right.
We did figure out a way. The Lord always made a way, but it was scary at first. And also, you mentioned there was a level of trust
Yeah.
because we did not go to the same college,
Right.
and we had our own little built lives there. So it was like, okay, now we basically had to break the news to everybody that we're in a relationship. It was all new territory. It was harder for me because it was like, okay, I can't see him around campus. Like, I'm not gonna see him until the weekend. I don't know who he's friends with at school. I don't know what their relationships are like. And it was difficult, but we got through it and we were unscathed. Like, nothing happened, and
Yeah.
it was a really nice time.
It was
like
a
what
really
you
nice
said.
time.
Yeah.
We grew again. That keeps coming out.
Yeah.
We really did. So I mean, after the college time, graduating,
and like we had our own sets of expectations of what would happen after college, and obviously like nothing really goes as planned. That was like another thing that we had to navigate together, because we both wanted to get married, but also the world's expectations. Oh, you have to have a job, or you're gonna go get your master's, da 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 da. What are you gonna do for the summer? Like internships, all this stuff. And it was just very, very overwhelming, because like not only is there pressure on you as a couple, especially with the trajectory of getting married, but also there's pressure on you as an individual about living up to the world standards or your parents' standards of getting a job, getting your master's, getting an internship, doing this, that, and the third. So it was definitely heavy on us.
yeah, we spent a lot of time, talking and praying and figuring it out, and we've moved forward in a really great way, and now we're engaged. And
Now we're engaged,
Yeah.
and he has a great job. I have a job that I really am grateful for.
Yeah, a lot of great testimonies. There were times when we had to really pray it out, and
Oh yeah,
You know?
it was like not easy.
Yeah.
I feel like what would have made it easier is trusting God. I feel like we felt like we had to do a lot of it on our own.
right.
And that's the biggest lie of the enemy. Like, if you trust God, you have no weight on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Like, none.
She's really giving you guys gold right now.
I mean, yeah, like, we were so stressed out for no reason. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, we both really wanted to get married, but
Yeah.
I feel like if we gave it to God then, we would have enjoyed everything so much more.
Yeah.
Because now we're, like, giving the wedding planning, we're giving the finances, we're giving everything to God. And I'm so at peace with everything.
Yeah.
I'm so at peace with the when, I'm so at peace with the how, because God brought us together. If God
Yeah.
brought us together, He's going to figure everything else out for us.
Right.
And I know there's people out there that love to recite that, honestly, like, stupid phrase. Oh, God only helps those who help themselves. No, the Bible said God helps the helpless. So don't tell me that.
Yeah, we've learned over time and continuing to learn how to trust God and know that He wants to provide these things and do these things and bring us through. And we don't have to do everything by ourselves. We don't have to do it and then He helps us. It's He's leading us, He's guiding us, He's directing us, He's giving us the wisdom, He's opening the doors. We're really just responding to Him. That's really what it is,
Yeah.
We're responding to what He's doing. And you could learn that, you could read that in the Bible, but it's also an experience. You experience that through the different situations that life brings you. To trust God in this type of situation, to trust God in this type of situation.
Until it's every situation.
Until it's every situation.
Like, there's nothing too small or too big for God. People are like, oh, God can't care about this. It's like so small, I can take care of it. No, once you open your heart and really open your faith to believing God can help you in every single circumstance and situation, why would you ever want to do anything by yourself again? And also, when God's in the midst, it turns out way better than you could have ever done it yourself. We like to think that we make ourselves into these little mini gods that can just take care of everything until there's something that literally we have no control over. Sorry to break it to you, you never had control in the first place. Like, God gives you so much grace for life, and our lives would be so much better managed and also so much more abundant, and all the things that we touch would prosper once we let God into them.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things we think, oh yeah, I'm praying over this, God's on it, but in reality, you're taking care of the entire thing.
Wow. We learned that throughout our dating time. Now we're learning it
Yeah.
as we go forward, and it was definitely a grace-filled
Oh yeah.
relationship, and we're looking for a grace-filled engagement
Yes.
and a graceful
Yes.
marriage.
Amen. One last thing that I wanted to say before we close out is that it's one thing to learn it and to really take to heart, but another thing to apply it. We're in the applying stage. We've learned it. It's been a year or more. It's been honestly 22 years of us learning how to let God in, and we're applying it now. I encourage you guys to do that. Please like and subscribe if you like these videos. Please subscribe, hit the like button. Comment down below if you guys want relationship advice or really any type of video you want us to do together. Thank you for watching, and God bless you guys,
and peace.